Well, hello to everybody. To those who don't know me, I'm Jacob. I lead our business development here at SignAgent, and I'll be your host for today's webinar, Working with Visuals. I love this topic personally because we see a lot of templates in SignAgent, and understanding best practices when it comes to preparing visuals in Illustrator will help improve your skills and increase efficiency. So keep this in mind as we explore naming conventions for dark and light visuals, applying custom colors to visuals, and other various tips and tricks in today's webinar. Now to introduce our presenter, David Juritsma is the president of SignAgent, and he has more than 20 years of experience in the signage and wayfinding industry. David has helped hundreds of firms simplify the way they work with SignAgent and the SignAgent mobile survey and installation app. SignAgent allows you to easily and effectively collaborate between designers, fabricators, installers, end users, and facility managers for every step of any signage project. So I hope that everyone should be able to get something of value out of the webinar today. So on that note, I'll hand things over to David, who will take us through working with visuals in SignAgent.
All right. Yeah, thank you very much, Jacob. And I'd like to just say a quick as I was sort of trying to prepare this webinar, I came across some potential uses for the visuals, and I really wanted to make it look nice and try and not have a generic versions of it. So Mike Snar was kind enough to let me use some examples of the new standards for the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey, for their airports in this demo. So I'll be sort of showing samples of that in there as well. And I believe there's also a sample from a Modulex project, and then the rest are sort of generic things. So thank you to both of Mike Snare and Modulex for that. So yeah, I'm going to start off just by sort of introducing what visuals are and why we called them visuals, then going through and working with the visuals. And then so, yeah, I'm going to start off with the introduction to visuals. So what is a visual? So it's basically something that you see on a sign. So like a picture or a photograph. In our case, we decided to go with the term visual because there was different pieces of information, visual information that are being used in signs. And I'll sort of go through that in the next steps, where you had like symbols and graphics and all these different things. So I'll break that down in this next step here. So the types of visuals. So in SignAgent, we use arrows. So arrows are a mark or a sign resembling an arrow used to show direction or position, like a pointer. We all know arrows if we're in this industry here. So, but we have arrows that are being used as part of templating. We have icons, pictograms, or symbols. So these is kind of a throw up, and it really depends on, or sorry, I should say toss up, not throw up, based on location, a pictogram or a symbol. My preference is the term pictogram, but we're seeing a lot of symbol being used. An icon is sort of a distant third of the three. And it's generally, or SEG describes symbols as the universal vocabulary that can transcend word, language, location, and culture. And so it can also define and communicate information more concisely than words. So here you have an accessible symbol, a departure symbol, and then a connecting flight symbol. The next thing is backgrounds in the sign types and templates. So basically the things that can be seen behind a picture or the object. So the main part of this is the text and the arrow and the one, but then you have the background information for the gloss or matte sort of overlay, as well as the circles that are over here. And then you have a picture of Sir Isaac Newton there in the background, as well as then this information here is also in the background of the text. Then we have accents. So accents are basically, you've got pieces of information that are sort of used as dividers and groupings, such as this bar here. It's not really part of this symbol set or the arrow or the symbols, but it's used to separate, similar to these pieces here. And then this line here is a spacer between the pieces of information here. We have maps. So you can place maps into sign types or into templates. And so we've got maps that can be placed. And then we got markers that are being used in visuals as well. So these markers, these are templated markers that can actually be uploaded as templates into SignAgent. And really, this is a visual that can then be placed onto the actual location plan of the map as well. So we're using that same sort of visuals area. There's a spot that you can use a check mark to mark that off. So next, there's the question of, well, what are we putting in? Is it a vector or a raster? And so the definitions of vector and raster are, well, vector are basically points on a Cartesian plane connected to form shapes. So basically point, and a line or a curve, and then it connects, and then it's makes the shape and then makes the graphic. Whereas raster is basically an array of pixels. So you have dots all over the place. And then those dots together with different colors form an image. So the file types that we use in SignAgent are SVGs and PDFs for the vector, and then raster are JPEG and PNG. And we use artwork. Artwork uses SVGs. So we're drawing the signs in Illustrator and exporting as SVG and uploading that into SignAgent. We also can draw custom markers. So we're drawing those in Illustrator and exporting SVG and uploading that. And then we're using PDFs for location plans. And then the things that are rasterized in SignAgent would be the photographs that are taken from the mobile devices. Those are JPEGs that are being uploaded to the site and they're being captured there. If you're using a textured background in artwork, you can do that. And then we just recommend that you would actually upload a low-res version for the thumbnail. And then when it comes back out through the Fabricator script, you can export and replace with a high-res production file. That way you can sort of make do, or you can really get the best of both worlds, where you're creating a template and then also getting the high-res background. So it doesn't eat up too much time and resources there. And I didn't put in a spot here for JPEGs for location plans or PNGs for location plans, because we strongly recommend that you would use PDFs for the location plans, because really we can start to do really neat things with scaling and the likes and replacements, and it just keeps registration and coming from AutoCAD much quicker and much more effective. So working with visuals. So, and these are the visual field options. And so to find the visual field options, we go to the SignAgent. In SignAgent, you go to organization, which is in the white space at the top, go down to manage fields, and then click new field. And here's a breakdown of what that new field option looks like. And we've got the naming of the field. So we want to consider a naming convention. So we name it what it is, if it's an arrow and the likes, and I'll go through that a little bit more. But then we have the grouping. So is this a message field or is it a details field? And if it's going to be in the artwork, it's a message related field. If it's going to be a note, then it would be a details related field or something about the sign but something that's not visually showing on the sign. Then we can provide details about the visual or the field. So you can say, this is going to be for arrows with dark backgrounds that have a light, whatever. And you can just go through and you can explain that so that when somebody else comes into the project, they can look at it and see the information. This is the field type. This is a visual, so you would check it off. That's the whole purpose of this tutorial, is to show that, or this webinar. But there are other options, color and so on in the fields, and yeah. So, and then is it global? So I would say that's most likely not going to be global. So you'd leave that unchecked unless it was like a company web logo, or sorry, a company logo that appears on every single sign, and then then you could check off global. So is the value inherited from the location? So you check this off if you want to make it so that the logo or symbol would be associated to the location folder. So you can actually create a location folder that you would put the plans in, and if it was building A, it could have a particular symbol associated with it. And then inside there, you would have locations. And if there was a location or a level symbol, you could have the level symbol in there as well. And then on the location, you can actually create a zone. And in that zone, you can create another symbol that you could associate. And those are the spots where you can make it so that locations are inherited. And then we have a spot for languages to translate. So, and what this does is it says, okay, well, we have a visual, and do we want this to be a translation? Or do we want something to be translated to this visual? So if I say yes, and I say, I need to pick which fields I want to be translated. So I can say, well, I want my destination field to be translated. So I'd add destination to here. And then when I save this, it actually creates a destination plus symbol field. So it's creating a new field called destination symbol. And then in the translation table, you can now specify what that translated value, what that symbol is. And then that symbol will appear every time you type in the destination value. So working with visuals, and now this is how to add the visuals into the system. Okay, so from here, we go to, again, organization, and then instead of manage fields, we go to manage visuals. Okay, and then we add a new visual. So in there, I get a spot for, again, I want to consider the naming convention of that visual. So I would say, okay, this is arrow left, right? And then I can say, and I can upload that arrow left file. And then I can say, is this a marker? So if this was a marker, I could actually make it so that this would show up on my marker list. In this case, this would not be, so I'm not going to check that box. And then I can say, well, what fields do I want to use this particular symbol? And I'd say, well, I only want my arrow field to use that symbol. And then, and that's where I would put that information in there. And then it won't clog up other pieces of other visuals. And then there's the option of batch importing. So again, it is organization, manage visuals, and then batch import. And this is what that looks like. And I would drag and drop the SVG visuals that I'd want to add to it. And then it basically drag and drop here, and then it processes them and then puts them down in here. And then in here, I have my preview. It shows what the file looks like as an import. And then it allows me to match. So it says this is a new visual, or this is a matching visual and a new visual. And then in this case, if I have a new visual, it allows me to type in the name. And if there is a matching piece here, then it doesn't allow me to change that name. And then I go to my fields. So again, I can say, well, these are all symbols. This is a symbol. This is a symbol if I had that in already. And then does it require a dark background? So if this was a white arrow and there's no background to it, then I'd need to use the dark background so that when I'm picking from my drop down, I can actually see the arrow. And I believe this actually will do it automatically when you upload, say, a white arrow. It'll actually automatically check that. And then, is this a marker? So if you wanted to customize your markers, you could go in and upload a bunch of SVGs here and say, these are all my markers. And then you would just go to the sign type and you would specify which marker goes to which sign type. Okay, so grouping visuals. Grouping visuals based on the visual types. So this is going back to that first part where I was talking about, the different pieces. So we have arrow or symbol or map, right? And we really want to make it so that when I'm trying to put in my arrow, I don't have the option to put in a map, right? Or I don't have an option to put in the accessible symbol, right? So in this case, we have arrow and symbol fields. So that's the field names. And then in Illustrator, we would use the lowercase version of it. And if there's a space in those fields, then you would put in an underscore. And then here's the visuals. So we're basically putting those into separate bins, and we're making it so that when I pick my arrows, I'm only getting my arrows. Or when I pick my symbols, I'm only getting my symbols. Color considerations. So light background versus a dark background. So in this case, I'm going to say, okay, well, I'm going to go one step further now and say that I'm going to focus on my arrows. When I'm going to say I actually have two types of arrows. One that is, for dark backgrounds and one that are for light backgrounds. You could also have interior and exterior arrows. So maybe they need to be a little thicker on the out when they're exterior versus interior. And you can define those. So the SignAgent field you would create would be called arrow dark. And really you can call it whatever you want, but the key is that it matches the field from Illustrator. The layer name in Illustrator would be arrow_dark. And then here are your differences. So we have these are the visuals. So when I'm going to pick from my arrow dark field in my particular sign type, I'm only getting these three arrows, and the arrows that are part of this family, I'm not giving the option to pick the other three that are the light arrows, because then I would just get white boxes. And this is actually important for when we're setting this up for our clients to use on an ongoing basis after the fact. We want to make this as foolproof as possible, so that they can't put an arrow that you spent a whole lot of time on designing in the wrong spot, right? Or the symbols in the wrong spot. So, and then we want to segment. So this is now going even further on the arrows. And then I'm saying that some arrows are intended to be on messages that are left justified versus arrow messages that are right justified. Okay, so in this case, the SignAgent field would be called arrow dark left for the left and arrow dark right for the right. And then the AI names would be arrow_dark left or underscore left and arrow dark right with the underscores. In this case, I'm given my left arrow and my up arrow and down arrow. I'm saying I can use both of those in the left field, but I can't use my right arrow on the left side. But I can use my right arrow on the left side, but I can't use my left arrow on the right side. I hope that makes sense. So placement into artwork. So we always scale to fit visual field visuals. Okay, so they always scale to fit. So when, if this was a square or if this was a rectangle, it always scales to fit, regardless, and it fits in there. So this happens to be a square, so it just fits perfectly. But if this was a rectangle this way, it would still fit just to the height. And if it was a rectangle this way, it would just be, or vertically, it would just fit the, it'd still be a square because it always scales to fit. And then there are alignment options. So you can see here that they always scale to fit. And then the alignments are, the options are saying top left into, and you basically draw this in Illustrator on this box. Okay. And in that case, you get top left. So it's aligning top left corner. Okay. And then we have top center. And you see that top left and top center are identical for the ones that are in the rectangle turned 90 degrees. And then top right. And then there is left middle. So left middle, center middle. This one here, there's actually no change because it's basically it's fitting in that square. Right middle, sliding it over, and the other one stays in the same spot. Bottom left. Bottom center. And then bottom right. Okay, so hopefully that's clear. There are alignment options, but that's sort of, that's more in the templating webinars that we've done as well. So there are actually webinars for the artwork creation. This is trying to focus on just the visual part of this, but there's two webinars on Artwork 101 and Artwork 201 as well that sort of talk about the inter-alignments between visuals and the likes. So next we have the dynamic appearance of visuals. So in this case, this visual here is actually being drawn when there is a visual here. So you can see here that there's this, I tried clicking that. There's this arrow, arrow vertical left. And the arrow vertical is a little bit different than just the arrow left, because the arrow left is a smaller one here. But essentially that this divider that has this destination tertiary color, which is this block here, that gets drawn when there is content in this area. And if there is no arrow, this doesn't get drawn. And in fact, even this background yellow color is actually being drawn based on that arrow left vertical. So that's a bit of an additional use of color in video or in templating. So there's static visuals. So in this one here, this background doesn't change. This is like a floral pattern. And what we do here is that we can just make this a graphic or put it in a layer called graphic. And then inside there, we can do a compound path of this, quite complex vector. This is actually all vectorized. So this is, again, it's that coding. It's a whole bunch of coding that is explaining all of this. And what we can do is we can get that down to one compound path And again, actually, this has that accent. This has that color associated to it. So it's not this magenta color. This color is actually being a color field in SignAgent that is applying that color. So it's a much nicer color than magenta, and I believe it's also on like a frosted glass as well. So it's quite elegant. This is one of the Modulix backgrounds here. So preparing visuals. So it's really key to make sure that the relationship between symbols that are similar are maintained. So in this case, the arrow from the left arrow to the up left arrow to the up arrow are consistent based on this sort of block, right? If this is the protection zone, there's actually no protection zone here. So if I didn't use a protection zone and I just sort of made my artboard to the size of all of these, so this box would basically get smaller. And so what would happen is that this piece here would actually get blown up larger because again, we're scaling to fit. So it's going to scale to fit the box. So we're going to get something that looks like, this is going to be related because it fits the box nicely. This one is going to look nice because it fits the box. But then this one here is going to scale up and get too large. Whereas if we use the artboard, that's this consistent artboard, this would then sit visually nicely within the frame. So here's an example of working with artboards. So, and you can see here that I've it's a bit of segmentation as well. So this is Illustrator. I created an artboard for each arrow, right? And then I've labeled them up, left, right, down, and so on. And then I've segmented and I basically said, okay, and from here on, I'm going to start using like stairs first, right? And then escalators. And so these are part of the pickup or the drop downs for the different fields. And I said, these ones all go to that arrow left and arrow, actually not arrow left and right, but these are basically your standard arrows. They divided between the left and rights. These are your stairs, and these ones are actually the fields are arrow vertical left and right, and then the other one, these are split up appropriately between the two, so you can either use this one or this one or that one kind of thing. And again, these are just exported SVGs, and then you upload them. You can batch upload them in there, and then you can segment them using those fields. And you can see here that the use of the layers for those, the visuals, I like to keep it consistent, and I use basically foreground, background, and then allow myself to be able to sort of select multiples really easily by using the same colors and the likes. And again, I've also converted each one of these into compound paths, just so it makes it a little easier for me to see what they are versus seeing this whole slew of different visuals or different paths or shapes. So, and here's an example of those paths and shapes. If this was a template that was originally done, this is that floral from Modulix again. And it's actually here it's set up as a group. So this group is basically, there's like this double group, and then you see the breakdown of the paths versus the same thing as being in graphic and then showing a compound path, which contains everything in here in this one piece versus having this. And this actually goes on and on and on, like really, really far. So So some advanced options are then working with the colors here. So dynamic color visuals. So in here, this is similar to that last one where, it's actually the same one. I just did a save copy and then I just put in color, destination, tertiary color. And this is basically going to be the black or the white, depending on what the destination category color is. And then so I've labeled each one of those paths or the compound paths as being that saying color, semicolon, and then destination tertiary color with the squiggly brackets in there. And then it will apply that color when you use that color in your fields. Okay, so then I added those to all of those, export them as SVGs, upload them. And then here's the backgrounds are applying those colors as well. So category color or destination category color. And then I've made it here. So I've got two fields, and this one is the destination category color, which is actually a translation of category color. And it's translation of destination. And then the same for the tertiary color, which is destination tertiary color. Okay, and then here's the result of that. So an untranslated or an uncolored version of that template is like this. And so you can see here that those arrows and symbols were all drawn in black in Illustrator. In my template in Illustrator, I actually drew this as white. So that's why it's showing up as white here. But then when I did my translation, this is a translation of that. So this is the same graphic, but because I translated the connecting flights right as purple and white, and connect or all gates left, destination or and yellow and black, you can see that it's doing that. So it's doing that, the purple and the white, and it's doing the black and the yellow. It's also doing that translation of the tertiary color, which was added to this here. It's dynamically applying these lines as well when there's a value here, and these background colors are being drawn based on if this value exists. And you'll also notice that in the drop down, there was only left values in here. And there is, you'll also notice that this airplane is taking off to the left. And this connecting flights are off to the left as well. So there are actually versions of these symbols that are to be used only when the arrows are pointing to the right. And that would be the opposite of this. And actually the escalator, I believe, is the same. So questions? I'd be happy to go into further details about anything. And I do have the Illustrator template that I can go into more detail, or even go into SignAgent and sort of show some of that information. So I don't see the questions right now. So maybe Jesse, do you want to, or Jacob, do you want to ask the questions, and I'll.
So this is actually the first time we didn't get a single question during the webinar, or at least I didn't see anything come through the Q&A.
There is a Q&A.
Yes, I just got one, which just asked if we can share the recording.
Okay.
And yes, the recording is going to be sent out to everyone who signed up for this.
Okay.
You can also raise your hand.
That also confirms that it's working.
Raise your hand if you'd like to ask your question too. I can allow you to talk.
I think somebody put their hand up as well. Sorry, and this is our first time using Zoom as well. So, yeah.
David,
Yep.
Michael asks if you can navigate to the fields that you were just showing on the website, so within SignAgent.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, so yeah, okay, yeah, perfect. Okay, so here is this, I set up this project, and if I go to, so when I'm managing my fields, I'm going here and say manage fields. And so I've got this arrow left field, this arrow right field, this arrow vertical left, this arrow vertical right, and then destination. And then I've got these automatically translated values. So the destination category color, destination left, destination pictogram left, pictogram right, destination right, and tertiary color. And so if I go to the working with symbols and I go back to my the visuals, this is where I can add my new visual, or I can batch upload my visuals. So I'd come in here and I can select these ones. And then when I do that, they just drop them in and they're already matching up because they already exist there. So yeah, and then so if I go to working with symbols, which this is the organization, and then manage messages, here's where I actually have, I've set up those relationships. And as I add to this, it will, as I add fields, it will go in and it will do that. So yeah, an example of that would be, I think Joe asked if we can do one on the fly. I can certainly do that. So I'd come in here and then say, well, let's add a directional sign that would go, I guess, above this door here, facing that way, adding it to this project, pick my directional. And then here, I'm going to say that I want to use arrow up. Actually, let's pick my arrow from here. And so let's say that this is stairs are through here. And I want to use, I'm going to say defibrillator. I'm going to say defib. And then I'm going to say this is a left defib message. So then I can do that. And so what I'm doing here is I'm just codifying that it's a left field, a left destination, and then it is it's the defibrillator message. So it's not put in here yet, but I'm getting my arrow up, and then in here I can say, okay, the left message here is defibrillator, and I think I'm missing there we go, defibrillator. And then the pictogram for that is defibrillator. And then I want it to be the category color is, we'll say that it's going to be red. And then the tertiary color is going to be white. And there we go. So now when I come in and go back to here and pick my new sign, you can see that it's applied that there. And I think it didn't. That should have been white. I think maybe my template is slightly off if this didn't work. Yeah, so then I'll do a quick cheat. I'll just say that this is actually this should have been yellow. There we go. Okay. Could you go over how to apply the specific color to the background again? Yeah, so in the Illustrator file, so in the Illustrator file, we want to go in and then you apply the color that way there. And actually, this is on the, so what I do is I have a no fill, no stroke. In this case, I have a no fill, no stroke box that applies that to it. So what I'm saying is I have this color. This is a command to the no fill, no stroke box. And then I do the squiggly bracket and say destination category color. And then when I go to my sign type in Illustrator, that needs to match. Sorry, not in Illustrator, in here. Then I want to go to my sign type here, and then I go to I'll edit this sign type, and then I need to make sure that that field is actually being used here. And there's the destination category color there. And so when that gets called on, it applies that color. And to actually put these colors in, I would go to Manage Colors and add the color here. And then I can just type in my name, again, do the detailed descriptions and apply the color here. And I can pick from the rainbow, or I can type in the actual hexadecimal value. Okay, no problem. So Karen asks us about the same message appearing in multiple sign types and need the appearance or translation to be different per sign type. Yeah, so that you can do, again, that's where the breakdown in your visuals here. So if I go back to manage messages, the message that I'm typing in here is not the message that shows up on the artwork. Okay, so this is just the message called destination, and this is basically explaining whatever's in here. Okay, so I'm basically saying that defibrillator left message equals defibrillator as the left text, as the left, or the pictogram left, and then the colors. So what you could do is, if you had the same message, like I can do another one here of coming back in here, and I'll change this to just a normal arrow. And then here I can, I'll add a second arrow and just put in a different message. Actually, I guess I could have done defib 1 and defib 2, and then just type in a different message. And that will, it could be the same one. So if I said L defib A. Right, then it's going to create a new message. And then I can just say this is le defib. And then pick my symbol. Right, so now it's showing, oh, I picked white. So I guess you see the flexibility that we have though, right? We can easily change those messages. Okay, any other questions? Can you clone this working with symbols and send it to me as a user? I will look into that. Yeah, I think if people are interested in that, they can send us a message, and we'll figure something out. Okay, yeah. Can you show your layers in the Illustrator file just to have a template to pull from? Yeah, so in the Illustrator file, this is basically what the templates look like. Right, so you have sign, top rectangle, or the bottom and top rectangles. And then we've got the column followed by repeater, or the repeat with the height. So it's actually stepping and repeating at that position. And then inside there, there's destination left, pictogram, and so on. And then we've got the text departures, the rectangle for it. I guess that actually should have a left. Middle alignment. And then we've got the pictogram, which would be there. It has a divider that is being added. If that exists, then it adds that divider. Then we've got the arrow vertical left. Whereas if that exists, it draws that divider. There's the space of the alignment, and it is center top aligned. So if it's just a square, it's going to appear up at the top. But if it's a longer, a taller rectangle, it will fill up that space. And then we have the background color that will be drawn if that appears. And then the arrow left. And then basically the rest of it the rest of it on the other side is the destination left, pictogram right, and it goes through those. So any other questions?
Looks like we're all clear on my end, Dave.
Okay. Great. Well, yeah, thank you everyone for taking the time for this webinar. And thank you for if you're interested in it, thank you for showing the interest in that. And if you're not using it yet, we'd be happy to provide a demo or trial of the system. And for those of you who are using it, we're very happy that you're using it, and hopefully you're finding it useful. And we're just very thankful that you're part of our SignAgent family. So thank you very much.